So here's my situation. My water's been going down maybe a half an inch every couple of days, and it continues to drop. I hired a company to come out and do a diagnosis of where a leak might be. They checked all my skimmers, my plumbing, and what they ultimately found with their hydrophone and other devices is that I have a leak in the return right here. And as you'll see, there are 4 returns in the sidewall, and this is number 2. So what I try to do is find companies to come out and cut that piece of concrete, and to date I've been completely unsuccessful. I tried 7, 8 different companies, pretty much was willing to pay whatever they needed, and couldn't get anybody to come and do it. So I said, to heck with it, I'm going to do it myself. Okay, so now that I've decided I'm going to do it myself, how the heck am I going to do that? Well, I shopped around to rent a demo saw, but with a demo saw and a circular blade, I would never have been able to cut 90-degree cuts on this slab without overcutting it on probably what is 4 inches of concrete. I don't know exactly how thick it is. And so I decided to go out and at first rent a concrete chainsaw. But when I first tried to get a rental on a chainsaw nearby, they wanted $280 to rent it for the day, and then I had to pay $550 for a new concrete diamond chainsaw blade chain, and that was not something you rent. You buy it, and so the whole thing was going to cost me over $800 to rent for the day. So I went out, looked on Facebook Marketplace, and I found this saw, which has started up pretty nice, but I've never used it before, so this is going to be quite a grand experiment. From Facebook Marketplace, I bought it for, guy wanted $1,300, I gave him $1,000, so it was just a little bit more than renting it, and I'll either keep it after the job or turn around and sell it back on Facebook Marketplace. So the game plan is to use that chainsaw to cut the 3 sides of this space with that chainsaw and being able to plunge it into the concrete that was recently done with Coolcrete just literally 3 years ago. And hopefully I don't destroy this thing or completely make a mess of it. But the game plan is to use that to cut 90-degree cuts and be able to lift this piece of concrete. The round things in the concrete are my pool cover winter anchors. Hopefully be able to lift this thing up, have it not be too heavy, place it to the side, dig down, and replace the broken fitting. That's the game plan. Let's see how it works out. So here's where I'm at. Good news and bad news. Good news is I'm cut through and the block is completely free. Bad news is, trying to pry it out, I damaged obviously some of the Coolcrete, which I anticipated I'd have some issues with and probably have to repair, and I've got matching paint, so if I got to do a little bit of cement work at the end, I'm all right with that. But at least it's free. The bad news is it's free, but it's not out. So next project is see if we can, because we've tried to pry and there's just the thickness of the concrete isn't enough to let it lift up on one end or the other. But what we're going to try and do is see if we can lift it up on that anchor. We'll see how that works out. All right, so here's the game plan. Well, we've been struggling to get this thing out, but it is loose. So I've wired up this contraption to that anchor, and I'm hoping between two people putting a pipe through here, we can lift it up on our shoulders and just lift it the 4 inches it needs to get out of the hole. We'll see how it works. Well, so the plan came together. Took some leverage, but I tell you what a pain in the backside to get this thing out. Two people, but finally I lifted it out, and at least that's what it looks like underneath. Got the block out. I should be able to put it back in, and with some touch-up cement, and I have the matching paint to the Coolcrete, I should be able to get it to look decent at the end. But at least this part is now done. Time now to dig in and start looking at what I need to do from a repair standpoint. Well, here's where I'm at. The hole is dug. The pipe is exposed. And the one side is definitely leaking. As soon as I pull the plug, I've got everything sealed right now, but when I pull the plug, it definitely leaks. So it was worth the effort. Now comes the next project, which is to cut out all this and put in new plumbing. So here's the next stage in my pool plumbing leak repair project. This, as you saw earlier in the video, was the slab I pulled out. But I'm realizing now, given the very irregular bottom on this, the odds of me getting this thing ever level again in the hole is next to impossible. Not to mention the fact that the thing weighs probably 160 pounds. So it's just a beast to move around. So the game plan here, don't know if it's going to work or not, is to cut it in half right along that seam you see there, or that line, with the concrete chainsaw. Now I considered other options, using pavers, using bluestone, and I may ultimately end up there if this turns out to be a failure. But if this can be cut in half and made a whole lot lighter and easier to move around, maybe it's 70 pounds or something like that, 60 pounds, and I can put it back in place, do the little bit of repair that I'm intending to do on the corner, and paint it back to its original color, I think it might be the best solution, and then use Deco Seal, or a type of sealer that goes around a pool coping to go around the edges of this. This way it'll always be able to be removed at a later date. I can fill the hole up, make it level, and I should be able to drop this right in. At least that's the game plan. Next time you see it, I'll have it cut in half. And here's my setup to hold the slab steady in place, sitting up on a couple pieces of wood just to get it off the ground, cinder blocks and some weights. You can see this bad boy, when it was poured, was 6 inches thick, but you can also see how smooth the concrete chainsaw cuts it. My hope is that it'll do just as well cutting it down the middle, cut it in half. Give me a smooth surface so I can make it level when I put it back in the hole. Well, it certainly wasn't easy, but I was able to cut a lot of the weight out of this slab. I think it's still going to be quite strong with all that aggregate. I protected the one side with some cardboard, just keep it from getting too scratched up. But you can see it cuts a pretty nice, I had some overlaps. I don't think that's going to matter for getting it level, but it does give a nice smooth surface. I think a much easier surface to get level than this surface underneath. So we'll see where it goes from here. Well, I'm in the final stage of this project. All of the hard work is pretty much done. I have now got all the plumbing running. It's under pressure. All the got a fair amount of cleanup to do, but the returns are all flowing. And as you can see here, I've got all new plumbing down in the hole. And I'm going to leave this hole open for a good 2 or 3 days. Just make sure everything stays nice and dry. And cover it up with some rain coming tonight. And did a little touch up on the cement. Got to paint that. I think it'll look just fine once I get it painted. And then take the new slab, which is sitting over there. And that slab will go back in this hole, much thinner, much lighter now, once I get it all filled back in with the gravel. That's it. Hopefully I'll show you the final product when it's all done. It's been more than 48 hours since I did the plumbing on this project, and it's now time to start putting everything back together. So as you can see, a pretty deep hole. The plumbing has turned out really good. Very happy after almost more than 48 hours. Everything's nice and dry. Plumbing fittings all are nice. So now it's just time to start filling everything back in again and putting the piece of the slab of concrete back in place. Let's see how it all turns out. Slowly filling it back in again, getting it compacted as I go. Plumbing's all buried now. Filling it up a little bit more, compacting it as I go. It's slowly getting there. Using that brick to really kind of pound it down in there to get it nice and compressed. But it's still going to take more material. That's why I bought some bags of paver, gravel and paver sand for the final stage before the slab goes back. The hole is mostly done at this point. Got a little bit of extra in case I need it for leveling off. This is just paver sand. Underneath of that is paver gravel, and beneath that is the heavy aggregate. So the next step now, it's probably going to take a little trial and error to find out what I need to adjust on this sand in order to get that block over there to sit in the hole nice and level. Which, as I said, I'm probably going to leave just a little high just so it can settle in. I'm probably not going to ultimately seal it until next spring after, a harsh winter, and see where it settles out at. So next step, get that in, and then final step is going to be power washing the whole pool area. Starting to approach the final stage on this. I was kind of satisfied when I did that sand. I didn't even have to adjust it, at least for the first time. I'll probably have to make some adjustments maybe in 6 months or something, but from a starting point, I think this is pretty good. So the final stage is going to be power washing the whole deck, which kind of got messed, pretty dirty. And then I'll provide in the final segment some tips on what I learned from this and how you might be able to avoid some of the mistakes I made. Anyways, that's where I'm at. Well, I'm in the final stages now. Just doing some power wash to clean the deck up. This tool is tremendous, using a deck washer for cleaning up the concrete. As you can see, it doesn't take much effort. It does a really good job. Very good. I'll get you on the next stage. I'm now at the final stage. I think this project has worked out pretty good for those that might be considering it. I've got the slab now in. Concrete's all cleaned. What you see in the seam is just tan playground sand, and I figured that would make it something easy I can remove if I need to, if this slab sinks down at all. I may ultimately need to do the deco seal around this edge where it kind of sank a little bit, but for now it's just fine. Difficult project. I'd say put this up near 7 or 8 on a scale of 10 for a do-it-yourselfer. What it involves is you need to be a pretty big guy, first off, to use that concrete chainsaw. I'm 6'3", 250, and you need to be a big guy to handle it. It's a heavy piece of equipment, a lot of forces behind it. Difficult to actually get through the concrete. One tip would be you need to plunge the saw versus trying to cut like you were cutting with a chainsaw on a log. The tip is where you get all the best grinding, and it's just easier to do short little segments by plunging the tip in and then connecting them all. The next big tip is, man, a piece of concrete like this, which is maybe 24 inches by 18 inches thereabouts, weighs a lot. That slab, when it was thick, was probably 160 pounds or more. Cutting it like I did in the earlier portion of the video made it maybe 65 or 70 pounds. But a piece of concrete like that's difficult, and don't waste your time trying to lever it out. You're just not going to be able to, at least not with concrete that's 6 inches thick. The only way really to get it out is straight out. You're either going to need to use a pool anchor like I have, or you're going to need to drill a hole and put a piece of a bolt into that hole, and then rig it up so you can lift it straight out of the hole. That's really the only way to do it. Concrete is just a very dense material, very difficult to get up and out. And other than that, it's a very satisfying project. I mean, for something I couldn't get done with anybody else's assistance, no contractors, now I have all my jets running, and the pool is running properly right now. So I'm pretty satisfied with the project. And if you're thinking about doing it, you can do it, but be prepared. It's not an easy project. It's a handful, but I don't know why I can't get any contractors to take on a project like this. Good luck to those that find any value in this video and decide to take this kind of project on.